More than zero, but it's not, you know, anything to worry about.
Thank you. Oh, you got the water?
Okay, we have an airworthiness certificate. We have a flight manual. We have a calculator. We have a striker.
I have a striker, a pilot license, and a driver's license.
Okay.
And the registration is behind the airworthiness.
Okay. I'd like to check those after the annual because, you know, they come out and they end up on a workbench somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the whole, like I took this whole thing out. We hear one of them for sure, don't we? Yeah. Is that yours?
I'm going to move it here so it's a little bit more obvious.
105, 735 left, clear to land.
That's a bad sign.
You're not hearing that one?
No.
That was our experience, though, is we think we were transmitting and not hearing back. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and put it up, and then we'll play with it a little bit in the air. We'll call with this one and see.
Right, it works.
Okay, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, weight on. And I can just let it loose like that and just hold it, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's remarkable how much strength that doesn't require.
Okay.
Because it's got a lot of friction bound up right there. So where's
Pin right here on the side. There we go. And here.
Let that ease out. Alright. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Yeah, so see, we've got quite a bit of lift. We're not screaming downfield or anything like that.
I mean, do I still need to worry about false lift?
You'll get a little bit, but not very much, because we're coming out pretty warm.
And just kind of get up a little bit and then call.
Yeah, and I'm in this direction, you know, like the 5-ball, we went out here, but I already feel like we're getting a right turn, kind of to the right of the water tower, I feel like. Okay, so right now as you're feeling that pulse. It's minor, but you feel it.
Yeah, very minor.
Nice job.
Thank you.
A little bit squirrely, a little bit rolled over.
I was trying not to be super nervous from not have done it in a few weeks.
Sure. Okay. Let's call with this one and see what we hear.
Okay. Colorado Springs Towers, hot air balloon, November 74008.
Hot air 74008, Springs Tower, good morning. Colorado Springs altimeter 3025.
And then, I don't know.
Just 74008 copy.
74008, copy.
Contact departure.
We're hearing it on both radios now. That's weird. Huh. Okay then.
So now if I'm wanting any kind of left turn, I'm gonna have to get up to get to it, correct?
I would, yeah. And so tell me a little bit about your landing plan.
Well, I was gonna try to just get over towards the trade zone area-ish, either south of it or right around it.
Okay.
Just for easy landing. And
Okay. What's your direction now?
I am
172.
172, yeah.
Okay. My rule of thumb is coming out of that field, 150 makes life easy.
Okay.
Anything left of 150, everything's easy. If you're to the right of 150, it's fine. Obviously, we got, but it can get tricky.
Which I'm a little bit right of 150 right now.
Exactly. But you're climbing a little bit,
yeah.
and we're getting a little bit of a left shift. And of course, there's a couple of milestones. I think if we're to the left of that water tower, things are fine. If we're left of that water tower, things are wide open.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm slowly closing in that gap on the 150.
Yeah.
Beautiful day.
Sure is. I sure hope the annual's going well for Corey.
Yeah, me too.
I would assume Ken has a flight today, so I wonder if they're just doing like a stand-up before Ken goes to fly, you know?
That's what Scott did.
Yeah, that's what I've done in the past, is just get the thing stood up. He does the inspection, sun rises, and then Dallas will be inflating his balloon, and he'll just walk over and hop in.
That's 1814 remain straight in after 3 to the left. 667.
I'm going to turn this one off. We're pretty confident that one works.
Tequila Sunrise, Tequila Chaser, go ahead. Thought I heard him calling.
Yeah, I did too. Just a burner. It's the downside of a clean burner.
Makes these noises. It wasn't easy cleaning it.
No, no. A lot of nooks and crannies,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Just gotta stick your arms all the way down in there and just
Yeah, you're
rub
stood
and-
up to your
yeah.
elbow, yep.
So we're good direction.
Yeah, I feel really good about this direction. Right now, it doesn't feel like it's enough left to get into trade zone itself, but certainly we're heading
Field
down a
south
wide
of that.
open, and boy, look how full the lake is.
Yeah, I saw that the other day leaving Scott's house.
So, being a carpenter, how did you feel about sort of the craftsman work on the basket?
I wish I would have had my chop saw to make my angle cuts,
Okay.
because I was just using a skill saw
Uh-huh.
with a dull blade, and I didn't realize that cutting that hard wood was going to be difficult with
Okay.
that.
It's interesting though how relatively basic the basket is.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, that's it. That's
Right.
yeah. And don't get me wrong, I think the craftsmanship's amazing. To think all of this is handmade, but it's not complicated.
Right. Just tedious.
It is. Lindstrand did a neat time-lapse video of building a basket once, and they showed it where he welded the frame together, and then he was, you know, he had it on a platform, and they had built the floor, I think, before they started the video, and then see him in his rolling chair going around the basket weaving, and it gets gradually, it's like, the video itself is like 15 or 20 minutes long, but it's clearly like 10x speed, you
Right.
know? And it was really neat to see, oh, now he's doing the rope, and oh, look how he does the step, and it was really neat to watch, you know?
Yeah, it'd be nice to learn to do it, the weaving and
Mm-hmm.
November Springs Tower. Wind 0203. Bobble 5 cleared for takeoff.
Interesting.
And we're hearing
But you heard it skip out on that radio
Yeah.
too. Interesting. I wonder what that.
something with the antenna. Not very fast.
No, what are we doing? Three? Yeah. And so coming out of annual, we did all of the extra checks of making sure everything was not twisted, and of course the envelope itself was twisted.
Right.
You can almost always expect that twist in the fabric because they're putting it away in the shop. They've got it folded over 3 times, and so that the fact that the envelope itself was rolled over is not a surprise. And then of course we're paying extra attention to that turning vent.
Right, which seems to be fine.
Paying extra attention to this fuel valve, which seems to be fine. So, you know, the first 15 minutes after an annual, I'm always a little bit extra careful. Because you never know, right? Did something not get tightened? Did something get not attached? Or there's a cable that's not on the carabiners? Or so I always pay extra attention because you can't trust how it was packed.
Right.
And it's not because they're bad guys, it's because packing it in a shop's a pain in the ass.
Right. And things can get overlooked.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to get things twisted and all that kind of a thing. So, but yeah, everything looks real good. Should we try out that turning vent?
Yeah, we can.
So that, yeah, those ropes are a little twisty. We'll have to kind of sort that out when we get there. Okay, so you're pulling. How's that feel for tension?
Feels good.
And you got a lot of that rope left, so you're nowhere close to hitting that knot.
And we're turning plenty good.
Yeah, and it looks like that pulley's straight from what I can see. That's good. Excellent. Yeah, looks real good. By the way, I'm only hearing them on this radio, not that one, about half the time.
Probably a few $100 for a new radio.
Yeah, not quite that much, but I think I paid $250 for this one. I bought it on Amazon. Okay. In your book study, we've talked about a little bit. Let me back up. In the practical test standards, there is a section, relatively small and poorly defined section, on airport operations.
Okay.
My experience is that includes fundamentally three things. One is the basic understanding of how an airport works. You know, what are the numbers on the runway? When he calls 35, where's the airplane coming from? You know, when he says things like, you know, 35 left, clear to land, what does that mean? Where's the airplane? That kind of stuff, which, you know, partially because of just your aviation experience, that comes natural.
Right.
The second is sort of like the legalities of airspace, but more important, the logistics of communicating with the airport. How do I call? What do I say? You got that nailed, right? No big deal. Because, and you may do your check ride in an airspace that requires the airport, or maybe not. But either way, it will probably come up of, hey, if we went into this, how would you do that? You've got that nailed. There's one area that we very rarely experience in real life, like I've experienced it one time in real life after flying for 30-some years, and that is light signals.
Okay.
The premise of light signals is that the tower can flash lights at you, any aircraft really.
You need to know what they mean.
And you need to know what they mean.
363, hold short runway 35 right. We'll need a few minutes to get our crew.
And and the premise of it is that they've created light signals so that if your radio fails and they need to communicate with you, then they can do that. And you'll see that they have a red light and a green light and a white light, and then they have different patterns. Is it steady? Is it flashing? That kind of a thing.
All that.
And so what I'm actually going to do here, because it's a beautiful day and right at the airport, is I'm actually going to call the airport and ask them to give us a light signal. Okay. And where we will see it is right from the control tower. You see the tower is brown, and then there's a gray layer, and then there's a black top. It'll come right out of that gray layer.
Okay.
And it's just a spotlight.
Okay.
It's like a guy's shining a flashlight at you. That's all it is. Today, because there is air traffic, chances are he'll flash a white light at us, and it'll be on for, you know, a second or two, and that's it. So, but that way you can actually say, oh, that's what it looks like. Not that big a deal. Okay.
Takeoff 35 right is
35 right is clear. Nobody's coming in. I just don't want to step on anybody, you know.
Hot air balloon, November 26484, calling COS Tower. Springs Tower, Springs altimeter 3025.
Jet views.
Approximate location, Union and Woodman. Requesting permission to ascend in your airspace. Hot air 2644, approved as requested.
Okay, so
Well done, Jeff.
he took off out of Class C and then flew into
He was under it.
Under it.
Because he's
Okay.
outside the base ring. Class C starts at 8,500, so now he's saying he wants to go up high enough to get in it.
Okay.
And you know, given the agreements that we have, does he really need to ask permission? No, but it sure is the nice thing to do.
Right.
So everything he did was just perfect. Okay, that card. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call them. Springs Tower, hot air 74008. We're doing a training flight, and I was wondering if you could give us a light signal so we know what that looks like. Springs Tower 74008, hot air. We didn't see it. We're the ones to your southwest.
Hi, 74008, resident. Yeah, I had it trained right on you. It looks like our battery is actually pretty low right now. So I appreciate you asking for the check, and I'll get it recharged, because it's kind of dim for us, too.
Copy that. No worries. Thank you.
National Cargo 363 Heavy, contact departure today. For departure, National Cargo 363 Heavy.
So if nothing else, that tells you how often they use it.
Right.
And like I say, I have experienced it one time.
Where you were needing to see the signal, or?
No, where I saw it and I'm like, oh shit, I don't remember what that means. But it was in Germany, and it was when Willie and I were in a gas balloon flying over an airport that was not yet in service. And so they didn't have any radios. But they did have lights, and they were basically doing practice runs on the airport to make sure that everything was labeled right. So there was a plane coming in doing loops, right? And we called on the radio, and there was no answer because the towers wasn't up and functioning yet. And then they flashed us a light, and I'm like, shit, I don't remember what that means. Luckily, they flashed us a green light, and I'm thinking, oh, sure green means we're all good, so let's just keep cruising, you know. And then the airplane actually called us on the tower frequency, and we had a nice chat. And so, but that's the only time I've ever seen it in real life. Okay, we're not going a whole lot of anywhere, are we?
We are not.
Okay, and I see Terry's inflated. Don't see Dave inflated yet. I think he was going to trade zone.
Yeah, we're not going much of any direction or speed.
Okay, so be thinking about, given the weather patterns that we normally see here, what do you think is a flight plan that would be sort of your best bet at this stage?
Well, right now, just get away from the runway.
Okay, and how do you do that?
At this point, I'll probably have to climb, correct? Because we had, if that south is still there, getting lower might push me that way some more.
Yeah. According to the ruck, climbing is going to keep us in pretty slow winds.
Okay.
And so if I would do is I would probably drop. That south is going to fade, right? Because we know it typically does in the morning. But I'm looking at the lake, and the lake still has a bit of a breeze on it.
Okay.
So my thinking is if we drop down to the deck, we'll probably get that south push, maybe towards the lake, maybe towards Amazon, but either way it gets us off the airport property.
Okay.
Yeah. Being hung out over the airport at 2 knots is not great. I mean, it's not dangerous necessarily, but it's not super respectful.
Let the balloon cool down a lot.
That's okay, you were trying to go down, right?
Right, well, I am now.
So are you noticing a difference in the temperatures?
I am.
Balloon's a little slower.
Yep.
Burner's a little louder.
Yep. Definitely burning hotter than we normally.
Yep.
Whatever, 200? 200.
I see, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a cell tower down here and a light post. Those are kind of the tallest hazards that I see out here. Like there might be a little bit of a quicker breeze right at the deck, but not by a lot.
So I'm okay to drop a little bit, but it's probably not going to give me that much speed.
Yeah, I think overall, I think as if you were to drop in here, we'd probably get a little bit of a left turn and a little bit of a speed increase. And I'm basing that on my spit, but also the breeze across the lake. The shape of the breeze on the lake tells me that it's going that direction over the water. Experienced hypoxia?
I haven't.
You've lived at this altitude for a while now, right?
Yeah, about 5 years.
Yeah.
I did get a little, like when we came here to visit, when we were looking for a house, I went up to the Pikes Peak and I was sick.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was just altitude sickness, which I guess is hypoxia, huh?
It is, yep. Typically, hypoxia, people refer to hypoxia being the early stages, and then altitude sickness is if you've been hypoxic for a while.
Okay.
Then hypoxia begins to affect you mentally, and then over time, physically, like I'm just slow, tired, I don't have good muscle strength, and then eventually it will start to affect your digestion, and that's where people start to feel kind of sick to their stomach because they just don't have enough blood flowing in their belly. At these altitudes down here, hypoxia is really rare. But starting at 6,000 feet, there's a potential that you could do a high flight and end up at 9 or 10. That's not totally unreasonable. And I do find people do start to experience hypoxia, sort of in that 9 to 10 range. Again, probably not you, because it's not that much higher than what you're used to. But you could have a passenger, that kind of thing.
I just need to know what to look for and notice them. I need to notice their signs of it.
Yeah. what you'll find, and you can talk to passengers, and you'll find that if they're getting significantly hypoxic, they'll start to act drunk, sort of slur their words. They'll be real slow. You know, you'll kind of have that sense of, man, is this guy all here? And it could be hypoxia. There's a potential they would pass out, which obviously is not ideal. But frankly, if they're passing out and it's hypoxia and they just end up in the bottom of the basket, they'll be fine. You know, sort of rearrange them so that they're not going to hit their head on landing, and then, you know, sort of just land as soon as it's reasonable.
How long will they be out for? Just like minutes?
Yeah, just a few minutes typically. And it's the body actually trying to preserve itself by shutting things down progressively. So the idea is things like, well, I don't need muscle strength to survive.
Right.
I don't need digestion to survive, and eventually I don't need consciousness to survive. So that's and yeah, they could pass out. Again, in all the years, I've only had one passenger pass out, and it was and then she woke up in a minute or two. You know, it wasn't a big deal. But she was from sea level, had never been up to 6,000 feet, and hadn't been drinking a lot of water, dehydrated, you know, was stayed out late the night before, all those sorts of things. And the bigger problem, I think, is when you as a pilot are experiencing hypoxia, you might not know it. Again, it's sort of like being drunk. You know, no, I'm fine. No, I'm not sure you are. But if no one else is paying attention,
nobody will catch you.
No one will know. Excuse me. Some indications for you is you'll be slower. You'll just be slower to respond. You won't be as, what I would say, you won't be as alarmed to situations that should concern you. Like, let's say that you let the balloon get cold and you started to drop, you'd sort of recognize, oh, we're dropping. That's nice. And then eventually be like, oh, maybe I should burn. But your processing is just super, super slow. And so anytime that I feel like there's a danger of being hypoxic, ideally I'm not alone, but sometimes I am, like doing a long jump or something, I'll pay really close attention to the instruments, and I'll keep myself to a really tight rule. Like, okay, plus or minus 100 feet, and that's it. So that I don't get behind it, you know, that kind of a thing. Or if you have someone with you, you can say, hey, we're getting into the altitudes, I don't have oxygen, we need to watch out.
Pretty low on fuel on this tank.
Okay, on this, and this is your first tank?
Yep, and then so I'm going to go to this one,
okay,
which I already checked the burner, and it's all yep. And then so I'm just good to just run this one completely out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course you'll hear that.
Right.
I think it's a good thing to get used to hearing it.
I'm definitely noticing the reaction time with this burner.
A little slower.
Yeah.
But you're holding it nice and tight. But like I say, you just got to be on it a little bit more. We're not getting the float that will get it 15 degrees. Right.
Yeah, I think I'm doing pretty good on level flight.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm worried about it from I'd say 3 weeks, probably not a long time, especially like seeing how Scott's way longer than that right now.
Yeah, it really depends though, because as you're learning, it takes longer to recover each time that you don't fly.
I need those more frequent. Yeah, I really hated not flying because of the basket, but I felt like it was a necessary thing to do.
Well, and especially the fact that you did it before the annual and everything's signed off, and I think that was nice.
So here I could land anywhere in here if I needed to.
From a safety perspective, absolutely. Right now we're inside the ops area, which would make them uncomfortable.
Right.
But I have landed inside the ops area before. Just got becalmed. So what I would do in this situation is work really hard to get outside that fence.
Right.
Because then
I see,
Yep,
yeah.
just this little one right here. Just think about going to the airport and you go through the metal detectors and all that kind of stuff. That's what that fence is.
Okay.
We're on the air side of the airport.
Okay.
And so when you cross that fence, you're on the ground side.
Right.
And that's where obviously the crew can come get us, that kind of thing.
Star 5325, Springs Tower. Wind 0304, runway 35, right. Cleared for takeoff.
But like I landed when I had landed here, I landed at that where the road curves and the, sort of the dirt road goes across right just inside the fence.
Yeah.
And I literally could not get outside the fence.
Oh, yeah.
The wind had turned back towards the runway, and so I landed, and the ops guy came out in his truck and actually just walked me and pushed me over the fence.
Oh yeah.
Because I had a track like this and I'm cruising and it was fine, and then it just stopped and I went up and down and up, and it's like, okay. And I landed thinking that I would. Of course, I was talking to the airport and the ops guy just drove out to me and he helped me and just pushed me over the fence so that the crew didn't have to worry about security. And also landed right next to that hut just outside the fence. I was crewing for Steven once and he landed here almost not quite the taxiway but the next road over before the pond.
Yeah.
And landed there again, be calm, just couldn't get out of it, and they ended up letting me in this gate and I went in and picked him up, and the ops guys just stayed with us and, you know, made sure we didn't do anything terroristy.
Right.
But the airport was super friendly with us.
Yeah, we're really, really lucky.
We sure are.
Southwest 591, Springs Tower. Winds calm, runway 35, right. Cleared for takeoff.
Okay, so he went from 4 knots to calm.
Right.
So I would say that we probably want to stay real low to get whatever drainage we can before it goes calm on us.
Okay.
It does look a little bit faster lower. A little bit of a right turn. Yeah, it's sort of running out ahead of us. A little bit, not much. But this construction's just becoming a regular city out here.
It is.
Springs Tower. Wind.
So, I have not seen Dave Yobb's balloon up yet, have you?
No.
So I see Terry, and I heard Jeff on the radio, but I don't see him anymore. Jeff and I were texting yesterday. He's trying to get a lot of time in. Ready for his commercial.
And I can go ahead and switch these tanks now, huh?
You can.
If I'm not liking the way it's...
Yeah, because you're noticing the slower performance. Yeah, that's fine. You can hear the difference, can't you?
So now I'm going to use that tank until it's empty.
Okay,
Not touch this side.
that makes sense.
Just so I have a side.
Hotel there, Anthony. Roger. 01, when able, turn left heading to 1130, Rally 01. Alpine 1814, wind calm, runway 35 left, cleared for takeoff.
And of course, we're going to the very furthest corner of the fence, aren't we? That's funny.
But at least we'll be on the outside of the fence if we had to.
Yeah. Yeah, and landing out here outside of the fence is no big deal. What I would recommend is once you're about 50 feet outside of the fence, go ahead and call the tower and let them know that you've cleared the fence.
Okay. say Colorado Springs Tower, hot air balloon November 74008. I cleared the...
What I would call it, the ops fence.
The ops fence. Do I say it all in the first pass? Like,
You can, yeah.
just
Since they know who you are and you've already been chatting, that'd be totally fine.
I can just literally say, I'm just letting you know I cleared the ops fence.
Yep. Because really, it's sort of in the back of his mind right now, do I have to send a guy out there to get them? What's the deal? Are they clear?
Right.
And then when we say we're clear, then he can stop worrying about it, you know? It's interesting because that flag's moving.
Yeah.
I mean, not going crazy,
Up
but...
1814, contact departure. Have a good day.
Ooh, all the way up to 5 knots. Right? Very exciting.
I'm okay with the 5-knot landing.
Yep, me too. I actually like, generally, a 5-knot landing is better than a 0-knot landing in my opinion. Because you can plan on it, you've got a solid direction. You can start to do the calculations on, you know, your glide, timing. Whereas when it's dead calm, light and variable, you know, you turn around 3 times.
So I can go ahead and
Yep.
show you our radio, or
It seems to transmit either way.
Colorado Springs Tower, hot air balloon November 74008. Just letting you know I cleared the ops fence.
Yeah, we've got a nice track out here now. This is great.
Tower, Cirrus 852 Echo Whiskey at 35 left, holding short for takeoff.
Cirrus 852 Echo Whiskey Springs Tower. Wind calm, runway 35 left, cleared for takeoff.
852 Echo Whiskey.
Bridge Tower, 7899 November is inbound for 35 right for touch and go. Wind calm, runway 35 right, cleared for the option. Runway 35 right, cleared for the option, 99 November.
You'll hear that a lot here, cleared for the option. What that means is they have the option to land and stop.
Or touch and go.
Touch and go. Because you'll hear them sometimes say call for touch and go, and then they'll get on the runway and say, "Yeah, we're gonna quit," you know. So. Okay, so we're safely out of the airport now.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about your plan.
Well, I would like to go more left than right,
Okay.
so I would probably need to climb up to do that,
Okay.
just so I'm avoiding all that area.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Just can't get over all this construction. I suppose I should be thankful. It's good economy.
Well, if everything else catches up with it, all the infrastructure and...
Just makes our life in ballooning a little bit more tricky.
taking away our landing spot.
Yep. Like I'd still be comfortable landing in this area that we're over, you know, here. I think that'd be totally fine. But I'm sure they'll build something there too.
Well, and with all this,
Yeah.
really looks like the first signs of something.
Something significant.
Yeah.
He's down real low. You see him, and
Oh,
Dave's
yeah.
inflated there.
Tower Cirrus 852 Echo Whiskey on left turn out.
Over 2 Echo Whiskey, turn left heading 280 and contact departure.
Left 20, switching departure.
Do I need to go even higher to be getting more of a left turn?
That's where we found it
Yeah.
before. What height were we when we had that left turn, you remember?
No.
Let's check our fancy notes.
Yeah, the hot air app shows us that, doesn't it? I haven't actually used it. We're getting a little bit now. 145.
It's not actually showing. It's not showing me exactly what they're doing. You can see our flight track we did. I mean, to the extent that we were actually going back north. I think we have about a 035 at the time. Of course, now we've got out of the airport.
I don't think we were that high when we were hitting that.
No, I think it was maybe 63, 6400. It wasn't very high. I feel it's turning now.
87 Echo, 9 miles to the north. Entering Aeromedical left downwind for 35 left.
Number 6587 Echo Springs Tower, wind calm, runway 35 left, clear to land.
35 left, clear to land, 87 Echo.
So yeah, this is heading us towards trade zone, isn't it?
Is that it right there? Is that where they're at? Is that the trade zone right there, or is it?
The trade zone is the clump of buildings on the other side of the water tank. And so they look like they're in the field to the south of it. And we expect right now the wind is going that direction on the ground, right? However, look at the lake.
Right.
Look at it's starting to get swirly, which tells me that that wind is calming down. And so we're heading to trade zone now, and I would anticipate that by the time we get there at these speeds, if we even decide to go that far, that the wind could very well have turned to be going towards the north or towards the east by the time we get there. I wonder if there's a deployment going out or something, because I see a lot of trucks going around.
I've seen last few days I've been seeing a bunch of stuff on trains.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So as you start to think forward to your check ride, what kind of things make you nervous?
Just really just taking this test
Okay.
is really my most nervous part. And I'm getting better. I'm 80% on
Okay.
these 10
Oh, you're
question
doing the
tests.
tests.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I haven't in a couple of weeks since I've been working in Cripple Creek.
Right.
but I'm even willing to take some time off of work to just sit down and study
Okay.
right before I take the test.
Yeah, that way you're doing that last minute refresh.
Yeah.
I haven't scheduled a test in a while. Do you have any idea what kind of lead times that has?
Okay. I do know I need to work on my intentional descents,
Okay.
like letting hot air out to get down instead of letting it cool down naturally. And
Okay.
yeah, I'm still a little nervous on that part.
Okay.
The whole flaring and recovery thing.
Yep. right turn there. Well, how about we try one of those descent and flares, and how about I do this? How about I demonstrate one?
Okay.
And I'll talk you through sort of my timing.
Okay.
And then we'll trade off and see if we can do another one.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, let's trade spots. Okay. So, first thing I'm going to do is just rotate us around a little bit.
Initiating a climb.
Okay, and just to be sure I'm clear on the fuel, this one's good. We're flying off of this one right now. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so we've turned around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to target landing on the other side of that road.
Okay.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a pretty good healthy bend,
Get you going here in about 30 seconds.
which of course we know in this balloon requires about 300 yards of red line.
Right.
Okay. Obviously got my gloves on.
Right.
So now there's this temptation of we need to burn, but not yet. What I will do frequently in this stage is just check it, make sure. Burners don't go out anymore, but still, I'll just do a little puff like that to get that sense of, are we doing okay? Yeah, still got a burner. Now, you'll notice heavy vent took a long time to start descending. Now I'm descending. So I'm going to keep a really close eye on hazards down below me.
Right.
So I got a stop sign, I got a couple of street signs, that kind of thing.
703.
And right about now, I'm going to start puffing it a little bit. We're going pretty aggressive, so I'm going to flare it out now.
Southeast of the field.
That was an overburn. I'm going to vent again.
Last that they reported they're drifting slowly east-southeast bound. Just let me know if you have any problems and we'll do something else. And also, traffic is...
Watching street signs, watching street signs.
You have them in sight. Traffic. Yeah, I appreciate all. Right, cleared for the option.
By the way, I'm not
the option 99
Tempting to burn, isn't it?
It is.
Notice I got the red line in my hands the whole time.
Victor Bravo, Yankee Springs Tower. Wind 02004. Runway 31 at Bravo 5. Clear for takeoff. Bravo 5. Bravo Yankee.
That's what I would do for a steep approach. Now we can be more aggressive than that. That was sort of mid-range in my opinion.
Hot air calling. This is Springs Tower.
Be easy to land now, right?
Springs altimeter 30.
The thing I like about that approach is now we got all this field and we didn't chew it up in a nice gradual descent.
Right, and then we can track a little bit and have a nice landing if we needed to.
Nice ground track. Oh, I'm going to be on the edge of the dirt. Similarly, you can go screaming out of here if you need to. Right, so now it's telling us 700 feet a minute.
Okay.
It'll go faster than that.
Right.
We should get up to about 1,000. By the way, right now the balloon is deforming a little bit. That's why you feel that puff of air. It's actually squeezing.
Pushing air out. Okay. Yep. I was wondering what that.
But look, I mean, we didn't get anywhere close to that. If, for example, someone had been there and they waved us off or whatever,
We could have got out of there plenty.
Now we're still got the speed though. Notice that even though we jumped up to our original 6,300, we don't get the turn until we're here for a little bit.
Right.
Now we've slowed down, and now we'll start to get that turn a little bit. Does that make sense? seeing the wind on the lake. Okay, so what'd you think about that?
That was, you said it wasn't aggressive, but it felt aggressive.
Sure.
But yeah, that was intense.
And it's one of those things, I would call it not super aggressive because if we wanted to, we could have hit the pavement.
Right.
Because we were coming in, we were about 10 feet. I could have flared it out a little slower, and I could have just taken the vent out if for some reason we determined, oh crap, this is our last landing opportunity, kind of a thing. So, you know, so that was what I would call a relatively steep approach, but certainly not pushing the boundaries of the balloon at all. Because I think our steepest descent, wasn't really watching closely, but was probably about 600 feet a minute. This balloon will do faster than that. When Aaron and I tested this balloon, we could get it up to about 1,100 feet a minute while it was still stable. Any faster than that, it started to feel pretty squirrely.
How fast does it take to recover from that? How many feet?
A good rule of thumb that I use is, depending on how heavily you're loaded, about 50 feet per 100 feet a minute.
Okay.
So in that sense, it would have taken us 500 feet to recover.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're actually headed to the northeast,
Right.
We anticipate the ground wind, at least where we were, is going this direction.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you feel about initiating something very similar to what we just did?
Okay. Land somewhere in here?
Yeah, I would say land somewhere in here, or really what we're working on is the approach.
Right.
And so even if we're coming across here and we don't like the landing opportunity, that's probably not the end of the world. But as we're going across this direction, maybe what we do is we get to, say, that intersection, and we drop down and see what we get. And in fact, we're building quite a bit of momentum here. What do we got? 6 knots, yeah. So, okay, so it's your balloon. Okay. You can stand wherever you want.
I'm going to turn it around.
You got fuel on both sides. The fact that we're going to go through a wind shear tells us we're probably going to rotate on the way down, but that's okay.
So probably no sense in messing because it's going to put me out of my spot anyway.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm falling at almost 300 feet a minute.
Okay.
I mean, I don't need to should I initiate or just let it?
No, I think it's descending just fine, and we know that, especially with it being warm out here, it's going to descend fairly aggressively. We do have light poles below us on both roads.
So about when should I start pumping heat into it?
Later than you think.
Okay.
That's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would start to slow it down now. And you're going to need longer burns in order to... That's good. So now what you've done is you haven't arrested the descent, you've just slowed us down, because we were at about 600.
Right.
And now you're going about 450. You can see we're starting to get that turn.
Yeah. It's probably a little tough now.
Alpha 3, and straight in, just remain this frequency,
Sure,
Alpha
go
3
ahead.
to the right.
Okay. Looking for hazards. I see tractors down below. I
Number
can see
99, November, runway 35,
I
right.
anticipate a right turn.
Runway 35, right, clear for the option, 99, November.
I think that was too early.
Okay.
Okay, notice we're holding about 300 feet a minute. That's good. That's a nice casual descent. Nowhere near the boundaries of the balloon. We're starting to get a steady right turn, right? Okay, so now you can start to flare it a little bit. And the real question from a landing perspective is, are we going to turn to the right side of the road, or are we going to go down here to the
So you're going to get a
straw?
little bit of right turn.
Yeah, okay, make sure you got your hand on the vent.
Probably an overburn, huh?
Little bit. Yeah, we're getting sort of a right turn. It's going straight down the pavement here.
I see that pole right there by the road.
Uh-huh.
It's taller than all these other ones. Is that a temperature inversion, or was that just an overburn?
Just overburn.
So should I vent or just keep?
I don't know.
Right at this point, I think I'm going over on the other side of the
Oh yeah.
of the road. unless I need to put it down right here.
I don't think we need to. I mean, there's certainly not a safety concern of any kind. And so in that case, what you could have done is two things. You could have waited to flare it out a little longer till you were a little lower. That requires a little bit more confidence.
Right.
Or you could flare it out and then vent and kind of stair step it down. Say if we're getting enough left turn to be in this hay field, straw field, whatever, I think that'd be a great destination. And if we want to continue on, it's not the end of the world. Just remember that access over that lake is pretty tricky. So in this instance, I'd be using my green maneuvering bit because you can feel it with one arm, and you don't have to pull quite so much rope. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm really liking that field. How about you? As we descend, we expect a little bit increasing right turn, so make sure that you carry it out long enough to get the field to turn. Okay, now flare it out. Nice. And one more. And one more. Oh, sorry, I misjudged. Oh man, I'm sorry, Travis. Oh, I screwed that up for you. I thought we were going to level right out, but good speed on the vent. Yep, and I think let's ride it down the hill.
Okay.
And then we'll land in that flat spot. Scott's got real good access. Yeah. So go ahead and burn a little bit. Okay, now a little vent. Yeah, nice. 'Cause we're descending.
Can I be venting while I'm burning
you
too?
You can.
Like a second.
No, and now burn. Now vent like hell. Nice. Very nice. Okay, now just make sure the balloon doesn't get too full because it's going to stop here pretty quick. Nice. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah, I think we'll be done. Since we're backwards, it's not going to stop on us. It's not going to stand back up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because the wind's not blowing.
Just going to cool that burner so we don't get anything in this job.
One thing I did see, I wasn't holding on properly.
Yeah. Because it's easy to get turned around backwards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice. Now this thing of a landing down a hill, that is the most difficult landing to do.
Okay.
Because
Just the terrain and watching it.
yeah, and you want to get the balloon flat, but it's, it doesn't, right? Because you got to descend into that landing, so you don't have a flare out until the very last second. Okay, that parachute's still open, so that should deflate eventually. Why don't you go ahead and stay with the basket, just make sure it's anchored down. I'm just going to